Inner peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of the mind within difficulty. The Stoics taught that the true battlefield is internal, and they urged constant attention to the workings of thought. The events of life unfold beyond our control, yet our interpretations, judgments, and reactions remain within our command. This distinction forms the foundation of Stoic training. While the outside world presents endless change, the inner world can be shaped with discipline and care. By rewiring the way we think, we shape the way we live, and this shaping is what transforms a restless mind into a steady one. The Stoics believed that a mind aligned with reason and virtue becomes unshaken, calm, and deeply steady. They did not expect a life without hardship or disappointment, but they expected the disciplined mind to hold firm in the face of both. Peace, then, is not a passive condition, but the active result of continuous training in perspective, desire, and choice. When judgments are clarified and desires restrained, the storm of the outside world loses its ability to pull the mind from its foundation. This video will explore the practical methods of rewiring the mind for inner peace, using the timeless wisdom of Stoicism as a guide. It will look at perception, at the discipline of desire, at the alignment of action with virtue, and at the mastery of emotional response. Each principle will be presented not as abstract theory, but as a living practice that can be applied throughout the course of an ordinary day. The focus will not be on distant ideals, but on a structured path that can be practiced daily, step by step, until it becomes second nature. The purpose here is to show that inner peace is not reserved for saints or philosophers in isolation. It can be cultivated by anyone willing to train the mind, observe its errors, and redirect it toward clarity. The Stoics left countless reminders that progress lies in repetition and persistence, and they encourage us to regard each difficulty as material for growth. Through repeated practice, the mind begins to respond with calm, where once it would have reacted with agitation. Let us begin this path together, attentive to the lessons and ready to apply them, so that the rewiring of the mind becomes a deliberate and rewarding journey toward lasting inner peace. Chapter 1. The Power of Perception. The Stoics placed great emphasis on perception. Epictetus reminded his students that people are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things. This principle shows that events themselves carry no emotional weight until we attach judgments to them. A delay in traffic, a harsh word, or an unexpected loss are external events. The mind interprets them, and through that interpretation, emotion arises. By adjusting our perspective, we change the entire experience. To practice this, begin by observing your first judgments. When faced with a difficulty, pause and ask, what is the fact and what is the interpretation? The fact may be simple, a meeting is cancelled. The interpretation may be, I wasted my time, or my work is not valued. The inner disturbance comes from this added layer. Inner peace begins when you separate event from interpretation. Expanding this principle further requires careful training of awareness. The mind often rushes to label experiences before reason has time to intervene. By slowing this process, you create space for clarity and allow deliberate thought to enter where automatic reaction once dominated. When someone speaks harshly, the words themselves are neutral sounds, vibrations in the air. Your interpretation assigns them meaning, often negative, and that meaning is what fuels anger or hurt. By noticing this moment of interpretation, you can choose a calmer, more constructive response. This does not deny the event, but reframes its impact, which is the essence of Stoic discipline and one of the most reliable ways to protect peace of mind. The Stoics advised repeated exercises to strengthen this awareness, because perception is a habit. During daily activities, practice separating observation from evaluation. If the weather shifts to rain, note only, "It is raining," rather than leaping to, "This ruins my day." If work is delayed, note only, "The task is postponed," rather than, "This proves I cannot rely on others." By holding to the fact alone, you detach disturbance from reality. Each time you reduce interpretation to fact, the mind becomes steadier. This practice gradually trains the habit of neutrality, which preserves peace and allows for better judgment in decision-making. To deepen the training, set small challenges throughout the day. Choose a few routine situations, waiting in line, being interrupted, or hearing an opposing opinion. Each time they arise, consciously separate the fact from the interpretation. Record in a notebook what the fact was, what your initial judgment was, and what a neutral or constructive judgment could have been. This repetition strengthens the ability to notice subtle distinctions and steadily replaces old habits with new ones. Daily review strengthens this process further. At the end of each day, reflect on the events that triggered frustration or worry. Write them down and identify the judgments you placed on them. Ask whether another judgment could have been made, one that reduces agitation and creates clarity. Often you will find that the fact was simple and the weight came from your own addition. This recognition weakens the power of negative interpretation and prepares you to face similar events with greater balance in the future. To reinforce the practice, combine review with visualization. After noting where judgment disturbed peace, imagine how you could have responded differently. Picture yourself encountering the same event tomorrow and handling it with neutrality. This rehearsal strengthens mental readiness and gradually reshapes instinctive response. With repetition, the process reshapes perception. The mind learns that peace lies in neutrality of judgment. A cancelled meeting becomes free time for other work. A harsh word becomes an opportunity to practice patience or kindness. An unexpected delay becomes material for endurance and reflection. By training perception through these repeated exercises, the world ceases to appear hostile and difficulties become manageable. Through this consistent practice, the Stoics demonstrate that inner peace is a skill of perspective, available to anyone willing to apply diligence, persistence, and discipline in thought. Chapter 2. Discipline of Desire. Desire pulls the mind outward. The Stoics observed that longing for what lies beyond our control produces constant unrest. Marcus Aurelius wrote that aligning desire with what is within reach creates stability. When you want only what is in your power, disappointment loses its grip. This does not mean suppressing every aspiration. It means redirecting aspiration toward areas that cannot be taken away: character, integrity, and choice. To strengthen this idea, reflect on the many ways desire attaches itself to things outside of command. It reaches toward wealth, reputation, the opinion of others, or the outcome of uncertain plans. When the mind is tied to these objects, it moves restlessly because they shift beyond personal influence. Fortune can take them away at any moment. The Stoic response is to loosen the hold and redirect energy inward, toward what belongs fully to you. Your sense of justice, your capacity for courage, your ability to speak truth, and your willingness to act with discipline remain untouched by external change. Anchoring desire to these creates security and steadiness in daily life. Expanding the reflection makes the contrast even clearer. Wealth may come and go with changing circumstances, and reputation may rise or fall according to rumor or praise, yet your capacity to live honestly remains constant. Approval may be withheld even when you act with integrity, yet integrity itself is never dependent on approval. Outcomes may fail even when effort is sincere, yet the quality of the effort still belongs to you. When the mind recognizes this division clearly, it becomes less likely to attach itself to unstable sources of satisfaction. Practice begins with defining what is controllable. Your words, actions, and decisions are within your reach. The behavior of others, the outcome of efforts, and the flow of fortune are not. Rewiring the mind requires constant redirection from the external to the internal. When desire attaches itself to external gain, pause and ask, "Is this mine to command?" If the answer is no, release it. This repeated shift strengthens the ability to find peace, even in disappointment. As the habit grows, the mind develops a rhythm of detaching from unstable objects and resting in what cannot be taken away. Each redirection builds confidence in your ability to remain centered, even when circumstances fluctuate. Practical exercise involves gratitude. Each morning, identify 3 aspects of life under your control. For example, today I will speak with patience, today I will act with diligence, today I will train my body with discipline. By committing to what is fully within reach, the mind withdraws from external dependency. The grip of desire weakens, and the roots of peace grow deeper. This exercise works as a daily reminder that your most valuable possessions are those that cannot be seized by chance or taken by others. Gratitude also trains perception to notice abundance rather than lack. If you can be thankful for the chance to act with integrity, then success or failure in external matters does not shake you. If you can be thankful for the chance to practice patience in adversity, then adversity itself loses its sting. Each day becomes an opportunity to exercise virtue rather than a stage for fortune to decide your worth. By turning attention to these opportunities, desire becomes directed toward what is always available. To expand the exercise, add reflection at night. Review where your desire reached beyond what is controllable. Did you feel frustration because someone did not praise your work? Did you feel agitation because an outcome slipped away? Write these down and then remind yourself that these did not belong to you. In their place, record what did belong to you: your words, your patience, your effort. With steady repetition, the contrast becomes clear. Desire begins to detach from shifting objects and to find its home in steady ground. The act of recording reinforces the lesson and makes it easier to recognize similar patterns when they appear again. The practice of gratitude can also be broadened throughout the day. Instead of limiting it to morning and evening, pause during ordinary activities to notice what is present. A meal, a moment of rest, or the presence of a trusted friend can be acknowledged as gifts. By noticing them consciously, the mind builds the habit of appreciation. This reduces the tendency to compare your life with others or to feel deprived of what you do not possess. Each small acknowledgement becomes a reminder that life is already full of material for contentment. You can strengthen the effect by combining gratitude with perspective on impermanence. When you consider that health, relationships, and even life itself are temporary, gratitude for their presence increases. Rather than clinging to them anxiously, you value them deeply in the moment. This attitude aligns with the Stoic understanding of mortality, which teaches that awareness of limits enhances appreciation. Gratitude, when paired with this awareness, becomes sharper and more sincere. Another exercise is to link gratitude with service. When you recognize the good that exists in your life, you can share it with others. A kind word, a patient response, or a simple act of help expresses gratitude in action. This turns gratitude from thought into practice, reinforcing it through behavior. In serving others, the sense of abundance grows because giving confirms that you already have enough. Through these exercises, the Stoics show that peace does not depend on having everything you want. It rests in wanting only what is yours to shape. By drawing desire inward, the mind learns to stay calm amid uncertainty. Wealth can change, reputation can fade, circumstances can alter suddenly, yet the power to live with virtue remains. Directing aspiration to that alone makes disappointment powerless and creates the foundation of lasting inner peace. The discipline of desire also extends to resisting harmful and unproductive cravings. Modern life presents many temptations that erode focus and weaken self-command. These include unchecked impulses to view sexually explicit material for short-term pleasure, repeated and excessive consumption of alcohol, the habit of wasting hours binging shows or movies on streaming platforms, and the endless search for digital entertainment with little or no value. The desire for unhealthy fast food and processed foods reflects the same pattern. Each of these choices offers brief satisfaction while weakening clarity, health, and purpose. To understand the impact of these desires, consider how they affect both mind and body. Short-term indulgence often leads to long-term dissatisfaction. The habit of chasing constant stimulation through screens dulls attention and makes concentration more difficult. Excessive alcohol damages the body and clouds judgment. Unchecked cravings for unhealthy food lead to fatigue and undermine physical strength. Each of these indulgences interrupts the steady rhythm required for inner peace. Recognizing this connection strengthens the will to resist. Expanding awareness of these patterns is the first step. Each indulgence promises relief or comfort, but the result is often distraction, fatigue, or regret. The Stoic practice is to pause and examine whether the object of desire contributes to strength, wisdom, or virtue. If it does not, then it belongs in the category of things that must be resisted. By identifying triggers, such as boredom, stress, or social influence, you become better prepared to meet them with discipline rather than surrender. Naming the trigger in the moment breaks its power and places the choice back into your hands. Practical application requires deliberate substitution. When the impulse arises to turn to shallow entertainment or harmful substances, replace it with an activity that strengthens rather than weakens. Read material that informs or inspires. Prepare a simple but nourishing meal or move the body with exercise. Silence and reflection can also serve as replacements for the noise of constant stimulation. Even small adjustments, like stepping outside for fresh air instead of opening a streaming app, train the mind to choose clarity. Each successful act of substitution reinforces temperance, builds endurance, and proves to the mind that it can govern itself. Another strategy is gradual reduction. Identify one area where desire exerts the strongest pull and commit to reducing it. This might mean limiting screen time by an hour, moderating alcohol intake, or choosing healthier food for one meal each day. Progress measured in small steps builds confidence. Each success demonstrates that control is possible and that discipline is strengthened by use. The Stoics emphasized steady practice, and in this context, restraint practiced consistently becomes a habit of freedom. This resistance is not denial of pleasure, but preservation of peace. When the mind chooses clarity over distraction, it gains confidence in its own power. Each small act of restraint adds to inner stability. The Stoics taught that mastery of desire is central to freedom. By refusing to be enslaved by impulses that erode strength, you confirm your ability to live with reason and integrity. Through this discipline, harmful desires lose their hold, and inner peace becomes more stable and reliable. What was once a source of weakness becomes material for training, and the mind grows stronger each time it resists. Chapter 3. The Discipline of Action. Inner peace requires not only control of perception and desire, but also regulation of action. The Stoics believed that peace grows from a life lived in alignment with virtue. Every act, however small, becomes part of this alignment. Justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom are the four cardinal virtues that guide the Stoic way. By acting through these principles, the mind experiences clarity and the heart rests in confidence. Daily discipline begins with intention. Before engaging in any task, ask whether the action reflects virtue. Does it serve justice by respecting others? Does it require courage by facing discomfort? Does it reflect temperance by practicing restraint? Does it express wisdom by being guided with reason? These questions transform ordinary tasks into exercises in inner alignment. Small routines, such as the way you speak, the effort you bring to work, or the patience you show in conversation, become steady training in virtue when guided by this kind of awareness. To support this discipline, structure the day with purpose. Set priorities in the morning that reflect your values. Approach each task with the understanding that even simple acts carry weight. Washing dishes, completing work with care, or listening attentively to a colleague can all be moments of practice. Each decision provides the opportunity to confirm whether action is aligned with the principles you claim to follow. When you approach life in this way, no action is wasted, and even routine duties become part of the cultivation of peace. To make this structure effective, create a rhythm that guides your energy. Decide when you will dedicate time to work, to study, to exercise, and to reflection. This rhythm acts as a framework that protects you from distraction and helps you avoid drifting into activities without purpose. By creating order in your schedule, you create order in the mind. The Stoics valued self-command, and a well-structured day is one of the clearest expressions of that command. Even the smallest tasks, when placed within a framework of purpose, become training for discipline. Reflection closes the cycle. At night, review actions taken. Were they aligned with virtue? If not, how could they have been corrected? The Stoics treated each day as a training ground. To them, failure was not final, but material for growth. Asking how an action could have been performed with greater patience, honesty, or courage gives clarity to future choices. The review strengthens accountability and prevents complacency. By treating every day as practice, you create continuity between thought and action. A consistent nightly review also highlights patterns of weakness and strength, allowing you to make steady corrections that move you closer to alignment with virtue. You can also deepen reflection by writing brief notes in a journal. This practice turns thought into record and record into reminder. Seeing your words on paper clarifies your direction and reinforces memory. By documenting where you fell short and where you succeeded, you create a map of your moral progress. This record encourages persistence and reduces the chance of repeating the same error without notice. Peace arises when action and values are not divided. This alignment produces confidence because you know that your choices match your principles. A life built in this way no longer shifts restlessly according to mood or impulse. Instead, it develops a steady rhythm where behavior reflects intention. Through steady practice, action becomes consistent with principle, and the mind finds rest in the knowledge that it has acted rightly. This is the foundation of lasting tranquility, built not by chance, but by deliberate choice, repeated with persistence. Each day lived with discipline and reflection adds another stone to the structure of a steady character. With enough repetition, peace is not only experienced in moments, but becomes a permanent feature of the way you live. Chapter 4. Mastery of Emotional Response. Emotions are natural, yet the Stoics warned against allowing them to take command of the mind. Anger, fear, envy, and grief grow stronger when left unchecked, and they can distort judgment, erode discipline, and lead to destructive choices. The Stoics did not aim to eliminate emotion, but to guide it with reason. Inner peace is achieved when emotion is present, yet does not dictate action. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that anger harms the one who harbors it, consuming energy that could be directed toward meaningful work. Seneca explained that fear often magnifies suffering by imagining possibilities far worse than what reality presents. By holding reason above impulse, the Stoics established balance and cultivated steadiness even in distress. To rewire the mind in this area, the practice of pausing is essential. When emotion rises sharply, creating space before action interrupts its momentum. The pause can be physical or mental, taking 3 slow breaths before speaking, walking briefly in silence before answering, or even writing down thoughts before reacting aloud. This space allows reason to regain its position as guide. By asking whether the emotion serves clarity or resists it, the mind disrupts the chain of impulse. That short pause is the doorway to freedom, because it provides a chance to respond deliberately instead of reflexively. Practical reinforcement is strengthened through visualization. Each morning, dedicate time to imagining challenges that could appear. Picture being insulted by someone, encountering a delay in plans, or experiencing an unexpected loss. In each imagined situation, rehearse a calm response, patient silence, thoughtful redirection, or composed acceptance. This mental rehearsal lowers the shock when difficulties arrive because the mind has already prepared its course. By practicing in advance, the emotional weight of surprise is reduced and the response is steadier. The mind learns that it is not helpless before events, but trained to act in accordance with reason. Daily life offers countless opportunities for this training. Long lines, interruptions, criticism, technical failures, and sudden inconveniences are all material for practice. Even the smallest frustrations, such as waiting for a response to a message or being delayed in traffic, can serve as reminders to practice discipline. Instead of regarding them as irritations, view them as structured exercises prepared by life itself. Each moment of inconvenience is an open chance to build steadiness. Every time you successfully apply the pause or recall your visualization, you confirm your ability to govern your response. The body may still feel agitation, the heartbeat may quicken, and tension may rise, but the mind directs how that energy is transformed. What could have been wasted in anger, irritation, or fear is redirected toward patience, clarity, and measured action. Over days and weeks, the collection of these small acts creates a strong foundation of inner command. The scope of practice extends beyond minor frustrations into relationships and larger challenges. A sharp word from a colleague, an argument with a family member, or a disagreement with a friend all test the same principle. The instinct may be to defend pride or retaliate quickly, yet restraint provides a different path. By applying calmness, you prevent escalation and preserve mutual respect. Your composure often influences the other person, shifting the tone of the interaction toward reason rather than hostility. In this way, emotional discipline protects personal peace and also strengthens the harmony of relationships. The value of pausing is multiplied when it shapes the atmosphere for others, not only the self. Even with consistent practice, emotions will continue to surge. No day passes without tests. The Stoics recognized this truth and taught the importance of self-examination rather than harsh judgment of the self. When you fail to maintain calm, the key is to review the chain of events. Ask with honesty, was pride injured, leading to anger? Did impatience fuel the frustration? Did fear exaggerate the sense of danger or threat? Identifying the exact root makes it possible to prevent repetition. Self-examination is not punishment, but instruction. The review turns what might feel like failure into a source of learning. Each reflection becomes material for the training of greater readiness in the future. By recording or thinking through these lessons, the mind strengthens its resistance. The widening gap between impulse and reason is the visible mark of progress. At first, the pause may feel short and fragile, a thin barrier between the urge and the action. With steady repetition, the pause expands. The distance grows between the spark of emotion and the choice of response. Anger that once erupted instantly now loses speed and softens under reflection. Fear that once froze the will now clears into preparation and planning. Grief that once overwhelmed with intensity becomes tempered by acceptance and by recognition of what cannot be controlled. Even envy, which often distracts the mind toward what belongs to others, weakens when gratitude is practiced in its place. By committing to this process, emotional stability deepens, and the mind gains unshakable confidence in its ability to remain composed. The goal is never the erasure of emotion. The aim is to guide it firmly so it contributes to clarity, steadiness, and peace, instead of undermining them. Chapter 5. The Role of Reflection and Journaling. The Stoics practiced constant self-examination. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was his journal, written to himself for correction and encouragement. Reflection serves as both mirror and compass. It reveals habits, exposes weaknesses, and confirms progress. Without reflection, lessons fade. With reflection, lessons are reinforced and embedded in character. Begin with a simple journaling habit. Each evening, write down 3 moments of the day, one aligned with virtue, one where error occurred, and one where improvement is possible. This structure focuses attention on both strength and weakness without judgment. It transforms mistakes into material for growth. Reflection also requires questions. Ask, did I control my judgments today? Did I desire only what was in my power? Did I act with virtue? Did I master my emotional response? These questions form the framework of a Stoic life. By revisiting them daily, the mind becomes trained to operate by them instinctively. Journaling rewires the mind through repetition. By seeing your thoughts and actions written clearly, you can track your progress. Inner peace does not appear in a single revelation. It grows through daily cultivation. Reflection is the soil in which that cultivation takes root. Chapter 6. The Practice of Acceptance. The Stoics taught that peace begins with the acceptance of reality as it unfolds. Events remain neutral until the mind applies judgment to them. Rain, illness, loss, or delay are ordinary facts of existence that carry no moral weight on their own. The disturbance begins when the mind insists that conditions should be different, and in that insistence lies conflict. Acceptance is not passive surrender, but the clear recognition of what lies beyond the reach of will. Strength is discovered in this clarity, because energy is no longer wasted in resisting the inevitable, and the mind is free to focus on what can still be shaped by choice and reason. To practice acceptance, begin by separating what belongs to you from what does not. Your thoughts, words, and actions belong to you. The behavior of others, natural events, or outcomes shaped by chance do not. When facing an event outside your command, remind yourself that resistance provides no benefit and only multiplies agitation. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to wake each morning with the expectation of encountering interruption, selfishness, or difficulty. By preparing for such conditions, he freed himself from resentment and lessened the shock that usually magnifies suffering. Acceptance does not erase difficulty, but it removes the element of surprise, and this shift preserves stability. Practical application can be strengthened through daily rehearsal. When small irritations arise, a crowded train, an extended wait, a tool that fails, problems in your house or apartment like plumbing, electrical or anything that breaks down and needs maintenance, or even dropping and breaking your phone or cracking the screen, Remind yourself that such things belong to the flow of life. Say inwardly, "This is outside my choice. I will meet it with calm." Each repetition is a form of training, and each small success prepares the mind for greater challenges. The body may still react with tension, but the mind is trained to release judgment and choose steadiness. Gradually, acceptance extends beyond minor inconveniences to larger trials, such as the loss of opportunities, financial setbacks, or painful changes in relationships. These greater trials test the same principle on a larger scale and reveal how deeply the practice has been rooted. The Stoic seeks to remain clear on the distinction between what can be acted upon and what cannot. If action is possible, it is taken with reason, planning, and courage. If not, calm recognition becomes the path of stability. In this way, both small and great difficulties are approached with the same habit of separating fact from judgment and the same discipline of choosing response over reaction. This approach teaches the mind to conserve energy, to endure with steadiness, and to apply virtue even in moments of great uncertainty. Acceptance can also be practiced in conversation and interaction with others. When someone insults or misunderstands you, resist the urge to demand that they see things differently. Their perception is theirs to manage, not yours to control. By letting go of that demand, you protect peace within yourself. Even in cases of injustice, the first step is clear recognition of reality as it stands, followed by a deliberate choice of the most reasonable and virtuous response available. Practicing calm speech, listening with patience, and declining to engage in pointless disputes all serve as exercises that strengthen acceptance in social situations. Extending this further, acceptance in relationships means giving space for others to hold their own views while remaining steady in your own. This does not weaken conviction, but strengthens composure, because your sense of peace is no longer dependent on another's agreement. Daily practice can include short moments of reflection. When reflecting at night, recall instances when frustration was avoided through acceptance, and note those where agitation still arose. This strengthens awareness of triggers and offers material for improvement. Write down the events and record the judgments placed on them. Then consider alternative responses that could have preserved steadiness. By consistently reviewing both success and failure, the habit of acceptance becomes stronger. Expanding the practice further, you may set aside time during the week for deeper examination of larger setbacks, considering not only what occurred, but how different virtues could have been applied. This repetition trains the memory to recall guidance quickly when new trials appear. By rehearsing both in small moments and in greater challenges, the mind grows accustomed to standing in realism rather than illusion. This habit provides a stable foundation because when reality is accepted fully, the individual is no longer shaken by every shift in circumstance. Peace takes root in the alignment of thought with truth, and in that soil it becomes steady, resilient, and lasting. Acceptance becomes a shield that protects against constant disturbance and a tool that preserves clarity in both ordinary days and in extraordinary trials. Through repeated exercise, it becomes less an effort and more a natural posture of the mind, a settled readiness that endures across every condition of life. Chapter 7. The Power of Perspective. Perspective shapes the meaning of events. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. A single event can be seen as disaster or opportunity depending on perspective. The Stoic trains the mind to view events through the lens of virtue. The question is not, "Why did this happen to me?" but "How can I meet this event with wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance?" By returning to this question repeatedly, the mind is reshaped to seek growth instead of grievance, and peace becomes less fragile in the face of difficulty. To cultivate perspective, practice reframing in many areas of life. When insulted, treat it as an exercise in patience and in controlling your own pride. When delayed, see the pause as time for reflection, prayer, or observation of your surroundings. When challenged, consider it material for growth and training for strength. This shift transforms obstacles into training grounds. Marcus Aurelius described the mind as a fire. Obstacles become fuel to strengthen its flame. By reframing events in this way, peace is preserved because the mind no longer interprets them as personal attacks, but as opportunities to exercise virtue. The very moments that once produced agitation now serve as exercises in stability. Even ordinary inconveniences like a broken appliance, a loud neighbor, or a mistake in your own work can be reframed as training in endurance, humility, and problem-solving. Practical exercise involves deliberate reinterpretation. Write down a recent difficulty and list 3 or more possible ways it could be seen as useful. Perhaps it taught patience, revealed weakness, or created opportunity for courage. It may also have shown the limits of control, encouraged humility, or reminded you of the importance of gratitude. With practice, expand the list to 5 or more possible interpretations so that the mind is stretched to search for hidden lessons. By repeating this practice, perspective is reshaped steadily. Life's events no longer appear as threats, but as constant lessons, each with something to teach. With enough repetition, the reflex to ask how virtue can be applied becomes stronger than the reflex to complain, and the mind develops resilience by default. Perspective can also be reinforced by observing others. Notice how one person complains about an inconvenience while another takes it calmly, and remind yourself that the difference lies not in the event, but in the judgment. When you witness examples of composure, let them guide you. When you notice agitation in yourself, mark it as a signal that perspective needs to be adjusted. By combining reflection on your own experience with observation of others, the practice deepens. You may also study the lives of those who endured great hardship with dignity, drawing on their example to remind yourself of what is possible when perspective is mastered. You might also keep a written record of people you encounter who show unusual calm in difficulty, whether a colleague who responds to criticism with patience or a friend who accepts misfortune without bitterness. Recording these examples makes them easier to recall when your own challenges arise and reinforces the habit of seeing living proof that perspective changes experience. Reading historical accounts or philosophical works where great figures practiced composure in war, exile, or poverty can further strengthen this outlook. Each observation becomes evidence that peace is available when judgment is rightly guided. Peace grows because the mind refuses to see itself as victim and instead acts as student of life. This shift carries into every sphere: work, relationships, health, and even loss, because in each situation the same discipline applies. Ask how virtue can be practiced. The more consistently this perspective is chosen, the more stable and enduring inner peace becomes. With practice, the reflex to interpret events as lessons becomes natural, and the world itself is transformed into a classroom for the training of the soul. By reinforcing this mindset daily through both personal reflection and external observation, the mind becomes more resilient. Challenges cease to appear as interruptions and instead reveal themselves as assignments in the lifelong course of character formation. This approach reshapes not only how events are perceived, but how life itself is experienced, turning existence into a continuous opportunity for learning and strengthening the soul. Expanded further, this way of viewing life also encourages patience in long-term struggles, steadiness in sudden disruptions, and creativity in facing adversity. Each event, whether joyous or difficult, becomes an exercise in endurance and growth. By building this habit, the individual not only preserves inner peace, but also develops a deeper capacity for wisdom and compassion, seeing all of existence as material for the formation of character and the refinement of the soul. Chapter 8. Discipline of Speech. The Stoics placed great emphasis on speech. Words carry power to heal or to wound, to calm or to inflame. Inner peace is disturbed when speech flows without discipline. Rash words create regret, lies weaken integrity, and gossip spreads unrest. To live in alignment with virtue, speech must be guided by truth, restraint, and purpose. In this way, words are seen not as casual noise, but as instruments that shape relationships, influence perception, and either strengthen or weaken the soul. The Stoics regarded speech as a moral act that deserved the same discipline as action, because words reveal character and once released cannot be recalled. Begin by practicing silence. Epictetus advised that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more than we speak. Silence trains patience and allows reflection before response. When you choose to speak, ask whether your words are true, necessary, and kind. This simple test prevents wasteful or harmful speech. In periods of silence, you learn to observe the flow of thought and to choose carefully what deserves expression. Even in moments of tension, silence allows time for judgment and protects against impulsive outbursts that later lead to regret. Silence is not an absence of action, but an active discipline that prepares the ground for speech of higher quality. By letting silence dominate first, you cultivate attentiveness, sharpen listening, and give yourself the chance to weigh meaning rather than rushing into noise. In this way, silence itself becomes a form of wisdom, for it is the guardian of judgment and the source of measured response. Practical exercise involves daily monitoring. Keep track of moments when words escaped without thought, or when silence could have served better. Replace criticism with encouragement where possible. Refrain from speaking in anger. Expand this exercise further by writing down specific situations in which speech caused agitation, and imagine how restraint could have altered the outcome. Practice choosing a slower pace in conversation, giving weight to each word before release. Another exercise is to commit to 1 period of intentional silence each day, whether during a walk, a meal, or at the close of the evening, using that silence to practice listening inwardly. In addition, create a written log where you note conversations that went well because of restraint, and others that caused disturbance because of careless words. Over repeated practice, the discipline of speech creates both external harmony and internal stability. By speaking with intention, the mind grows accustomed to restraint, conversation becomes measured and constructive, and peace is preserved as a natural result of disciplined expression. Each improvement in discipline of speech reinforces self-respect and strengthens trust with others, proving that careful words are instruments of peace and clarity rather than weapons of discord. Chapter 9. Simplicity and Detachment. Peace is often lost in the pursuit of excess. The Stoics warned against becoming entangled in luxury, possessions, or constant stimulation. True wealth is to need little. By practicing simplicity, the mind is freed from endless comparison and desire. Detachment from unnecessary wants creates space for gratitude, focus, and clarity of purpose. The fewer the distractions, the greater the ability to direct attention toward what truly matters, living in harmony with reason and virtue. The mind that no longer seeks constant novelty or accumulation becomes lighter, calmer, and more resilient when circumstances shift unexpectedly. Practical steps involve reducing dependency on external comforts, limit indulgence in food, entertainment, or material acquisition, and practice contentment with simple meals and modest surroundings. Choose simplicity in clothing, living space, and routine so that your identity is built on virtue rather than display. Seneca wrote that one who is content with little possesses true freedom, and this lesson can be confirmed in practice. By removing excess, the mind becomes lighter. Gratitude replaces craving, and peace becomes easier to sustain. With each deliberate choice toward moderation, the grip of desire weakens, and the ability to rest in sufficiency grows stronger. Detachment also applies to recognition and status. Praise and blame lie outside your command. Anchoring identity in them creates instability. By training the mind to rest in virtue alone, you detach from the shifting opinions of others. In this freedom, peace is secured, because the mind no longer rises or falls with external judgment. To extend the exercise further, practice reviewing your actions in silence without reference to how others perceived them. Ask only whether they were aligned with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. By learning to draw satisfaction from inner alignment rather than outer approval, you free yourself from constant dependence on reputation. This discipline strengthens autonomy, cultivates humility, and creates the foundation for a steady and lasting peace that no praise can inflate and no criticism can diminish. Chapter 10. Unity of Thought and Action. The final step in rewiring the mind for peace is to unite thought and action. To think rightly, yet act carelessly creates division within and diminishes trust in oneself. The Stoics believed that philosophy is not words, but deeds. Peace arises when thought and action are consistent, when values expressed in reflection are carried into behavior, and when each choice reflects the principles one claims to hold. Unity between reflection and conduct gives the mind stability and frees the heart from contradiction. Begin by setting clear intentions each morning, giving a few moments of calm reflection to consider the day ahead. Align actions with the virtues you value and picture specific situations where those virtues may be tested. Carry justice into dealings with others by treating people with fairness and honesty, courage into challenges by facing difficulty without retreat, temperance into desires by resisting harmful impulses, and wisdom into choices by thinking through consequences. At night, review whether actions matched intentions. Where they fell short, record the lesson and adjust for the next day. Extend the exercise by writing down specific examples of alignment and misalignment so that you create a record that shows progress and exposes recurring patterns. Add notes on how emotions influence decisions and how patience, discipline, or clarity could have been improved. This written record helps prevent self-deception and provides evidence of growth, creating a guide that you can revisit to measure development across weeks and months. Practical reinforcement comes from accountability. Share your commitments with a trusted friend or mentor. Allow them to question whether your actions reflect your values. This external mirror strengthens discipline and brings another perspective to blind spots that are difficult to see alone. You may also practice accountability inwardly by keeping a private journal where intentions are recorded in the morning and results measured at night. By reviewing this record each week, you strengthen the habit of connecting thought and action. At times, you may choose to set weekly themes, focusing on a single virtue such as patience or courage, and then review your performance in that area specifically. This adds depth to the practice and ensures that growth is spread evenly across all virtues rather than concentrated only in one area. As thought and action unite, peace deepens because the mind no longer suffers from inner conflict and no longer shifts between competing impulses. Harmony within produces harmony without, and life takes on steadiness, clarity, and wholeness. In this unity lies strength and resilience. Decisions are carried out with confidence, relationships are guided by integrity, and energy is directed toward meaningful purpose rather than wasted in contradiction. The individual who succeeds in uniting thought and action discovers a form of freedom that is firm and enduring, because every choice, great or small, is a choice small, rests on the solid foundation of virtue. This unity also creates reliability in character. As others learn, they can depend on consistency between word and deed. With such discipline, each day becomes a cycle of intention, deliberate practice, thoughtful review, and careful adjustment. Journals and reflections reinforce progress, and accountability keeps the course steady. Extending further, this unity builds resilience in the face of adversity, because the individual knows that consistency of principle will carry through uncertainty. Peace then emerges as the natural outcome of living in alignment with what is most enduring and true, and life itself becomes a continuous training ground where each act confirms the harmony of principle and behavior. By practicing this alignment in both ordinary routines and great decisions, the mind is steadied, habits are refined, and the character matures into a form that commands trust, clarity, and unwavering peace.